Alright gang, let's take a look at the upcoming warband here, and boy, I probably have never been this hyped for a death warband. In fact, I don't think I've ever been hyped for any death warband really, except maybe the revamped Sepulchral Guard. But these just feel very evocative, and the two main focus fighters here really have a cool story going for them, and I love that they've built this to a great extent into the warband's mechanic as well. So basically we have this jolly old couple, Zondara and Ferline. Ferline, which sounds suspiciously like feline. The hubby falls victim to this terrible curse, turning him into a beast. Driven mad with grief, Zondara vows to find a cure, and she goes to some lengths to do so, turning into necromancy no less. With her transformed hubby and 3 mindless thralls in tow, she has now traveled to the icy tunnels of the Deathgorge to find a cure. So the mechanic evolves, as I said, heavily around the tragic love story of Zondara and Ferline. Both of them have access to the tragedy mechanic, which works a bit like salvage but for objectives. In the power step, in place of playing a power card, you can discard an objective card that names one of more friendly fighters that are out of action, and draw an objective card. And I must say, thematically this is really cool, but I'm not the greatest fan of it from a competitive standpoint. Discarding power cards is rough, and if you find yourself in a position where you have nothing more useful to do than discarding objectives, you usually are not in a great spot in the game. And B, it doesn't sound very promising if there are enough objectives in their own deck with fighter requirements that it warrants a mechanic such as this. But we'll just have to wait and see. As said, thematically awesome, mechanically maybe less so. And there are more thematic stuff on the thralls as well, but let's backtrack a bit and look at what we get to see in some sort of order. We have all of the fighters' uninspired side, Zondara's inspired side, we have 4 objectives, 1 ploy and spell, and 3 upgrades. Let's start with our main star Zondara. She is a level 2 wizard from the get-go, 4 wounds, 1 block and 3 move, has the wild staff for 2 range, 2 fury, 2 damage. So far not all that impressive. Accuracy, move and defense is pretty lackluster, I guess. She inspires when Ferline has 2 upgrades, not including illusions. But the most attractive feature of her fighter card is for sure the Stolen Knowledge spell reaction. It's cast on a focus and on 2 dice. It's gonna be fairly reliable for such a useful reaction. If cast as a reaction to her activating in any way, shape or form, she gets to either heal a friendly fighter within 3 hexes, that includes herself, or deal 1 damage to an enemy fighter within 1 hex. The second part is obviously very strong when you get the opportunity to pull it off, but I'm sure there'll be plenty of opportunity to use the first one especially. And it's probably very much needed as well, if Zondara and Ferline are to keep all their named objectives relevant, especially in the Rivals format. She also has the tragedy mechanic, as I mentioned earlier, which I don't rate very highly. Flipping her over, it looks a lot more attractive, and putting 2 upgrades on Ferline shouldn't be impossible, but it's not very likely to happen in the first round, although there are a mechanic on the minions cards that can help with this, that we will get to in due time. She goes to 2 block, which is amazing. Sadly stays on 3 move only, but at least she's 2 range to alleviate this somewhat. And her staff goes to 3 swords, which is starting to look decent. No grievous cleave stagger, though, so less than stellar as leader stats go. Her reaction stays, by the look of it, the same. Moving over to Ferline, he's sporting 4 move, he's moving on all 4s after all, 2 dodge and 4 wounds. That's a solid stat line for sure. He also has the beast symbol, so he won't be holding any objectives for you. His rending assault is 1 range, 3 fury, 2 damage with grievous, and this is more like it. By the looks of it, he will be your tank and main damage dealer, as Zondara will stay slightly behind her beastly husband as a pocket healer. He inspires when his wife has 2 upgrades, mirroring her inspired condition. He is looking pretty good in my opinion, and if he gains extra damage or perhaps an extra dice on his inspired side, he is looking tooth dagger good to me. Let's move on to the dangle bros, as it were. Here we find Coils from the Exiled Dead, long lost brother, Toil. We have Crack Tomb, which might be some weird sexual innuendo, I guess, and Pick, who fights with a pick. So for your activation, you can pick to attack with this pick. That's even more funny in Swedish, but I won't go there. That's just brilliant. Well done. They are all beasts and minions. Beastbound Assault is looking tempting for these guys, I guess. They all field 3 move, 1 block and 2 wounds each. Pick's Grave Robber's Pick is a mighty 1 range, 1 fury, 2 damage. So very inaccurate, but at least it has 2 damage. Toil is sporting 2 range, 2 fury, but only 1 damage with his Rotten Shovel. And Crack Tomb is bringing up the rear, that didn't sound right, with his Engraver's Tools with 1 range, 2 fury, 1 damage. They all inspire just like the Sepulchral Guard when they are given a race counter. And now we come to the little bit annoying but understandable part, because it's a lot of text and you can't fit it all on one card. They have some additional mechanics, very much in theme with the warband as a whole, but it is in 3 parts, with each part written on 1 fighter each. So bear with me. On Toil's card we have the Gravebreaker mechanic, but all 3 can do it. Reaction. After this fighter's activation, other than an activation that included a super action, so no charge barge, who even does a barge, or scything prior to this reaction, place an objective token from this fighter's hex into an adjacent hex. Then you may unearth or exhume, and those are written on Picks and Crack Tomb's cards respectively. So starting with unearth. Search your deck for a Zondara's Gravebreakers upgrade. So any upgrade from the faction. Reveal the card and add it to your hand. So reveal means showing it to your opponent. Then shuffle any remaining cards in your power deck. So backtracking a bit here, the Gravebreaker replacing of objectives could be interesting for something like Daring Delvers, which has this little side game with exploration counters that goes up each time you place a feature token. So might be some interesting pairing there. Fearsome Fortress has some similar stuff, but I think to fully utilize the Fearsome Fortress you should be also able to hold objectives, and it's a bit rough with this warband since everyone except the leader is a beast, at least from the start. And the unearth then, it's obviously there both for thematic reasons, the grave robbers are searching frantically, super cool, but also as a mechanic to inspire your main fighters. Also very cool. Exhume then is if your leader is surviving, place up to 1 friendly minion that is out of action in another hex adjacent to this fighter, and give that fighter a race counter. And that is, as I mentioned earlier, how the minions inspire. So yet another reason, apart from her less defensive starting stat line and lackluster attack power, to be more cautious with Zondara than with her bestial better half. The minions are nothing much to talk about as fighters go, but they mechanically are pretty neat. How powerful the mechanic is remains to be seen, but I dearly hope that the strength of the warband somewhat matches the coolness of the concept here. Let's move on to the objectives. Dreamer's Respite is 1 glory in an end phase as a duel, and you need your leader alive and her husband as well. It's kinda rough for 1 glory, but as a small consolation prize there's 2 extra glory in it for you if you score it in the 3rd end phase. That asks a lot, and there are probably easier 3 glory end phases you could take if you want to go that route. I very rarely take the 3rd end phases, they are mostly bricks, but at least you can tragedy salvage this one without spending an activation at least to do so if need be. Not very impressed, I guess. Tireless Revenants is 1 glory in an end phase for each surviving minion to have 1 or more token. That should be very doable. Tokens, not counters. So move charge, guard or stagger. I mean, it's just a maximum of 3 fighters, so it should be dirt easy. Just pay attention that you might screw it up if you raise one of them in the last activation, then you might not have any time to give them a token. They will be given a raise counter but not a token, so unless you can play like a guard or a stagger in the power phase, you might be in trouble there. Small caveat there. Life and death is 2 glory in an end phase for having more surviving inspired friendly fighters than surviving inspired enemy fighters. 2 glory is tempting and you have a medium-sized team with race capabilities, so I think it's fair. Obviously there are some rough matchups for this card, like bigger horde warbands like Sarbags or the Grimwatch, but it should be reasonably scoreable in most cases. 2 glory end phases are rarely a guarantee, but you can't just take 1 glory end phases if you don't plan on doing an extreme amount of killing, and frankly, I don't think this warband has that capability. Next up is Soulbound Killers. It's a 1 glory dual search for killing someone with either Zondara or Ferline. If either of them supported the attack, you gain an extra glory. This is pretty nice, both thematically and mechanically, I think. I like it. It's fairly straightforward for 1 glory. Ferline will most likely be doing the brunt of your killing, so it seems fair. Extra cushion there with the leader as a backup. Just note that it has to be an attack action. The spell reaction on Zondara's fighter card won't do for taking them out of action. On to the upgrades. Borrowed Power is bound to Zondara and gives her Cleave and Grievous. So pretty much what I missed from her fighter card earlier as a leader profile. I must say it kinda hurts that you have to pay to get only decent things such as these, but fine, at least it's both effects. Salvaged Intelligence, so maybe they didn't find the cure, but maybe they found like a temporary intelligence potion or something. This upgrade removes the beast keyword from Ferline and gives him a reaction, usable after Zondara's activation, as long as she didn't charge. Ferline can then take any action except a super action. This can obviously be pretty powerful with like a double attack or whatever in the right circumstance. My only issue is that it's pretty obvious for your opponent that your warband pretty much falls apart when one of these guys die, so they will target your main fighters pretty heavily, very likely. So having a bunch of cards relying on both of them being alive seems awfully fragile. Next up is Cursed Strength. It's +1 strength but only for attack actions on the upgraded fighter card, so it won't affect weapon upgrades, which is a bummer. Could have been a nice little bonus there for weapon caddy minions, but maybe their inspired attack profiles are amazing, but I doubt it. The caveat here, or rather the second caveat I guess, is that you take a damage after attacking with range 1 or range 2, regardless of success or not. Ouch. I guess Zondara has her healing cut out for her. Ploys and spells, and let's then finish off with looking at these. First up, a ploy bound to Zondara. It's called Blind Devotion and is a reaction. Some of the text here is obscured, but I think I got the gist of it. Play this after an enemy fighter's move action, so that includes a charge, that ends within 2 hexes of a friendly Zondara. Push another friendly fighter up to 2 hexes so they are adjacent with that enemy fighter, or up to hexes if that fighter is Ferline, so probably 3 or 4 is my guess. Basically a limited counter charge. It's not bad since it's within 2. I'm sure there'll be plenty of situations where you might find use for this card, and protecting Zondara is probably one of your main focuses here, so and probably very crucial for the success of your game. So it seems pretty useful to me, even though I generally don't like fighter-bound cards. And lastly, Wild Incantation, which is a spell cast on 1 channel, so that's very reliable. If cast, consider rolls of double supports as successes in attacks made by friendly fighters. It's a lot better than if it would have been defense, at least, which we have kind of seen similar cards like. And when you start roll 3 or 4 dice, I think this could be pretty useful. It's not amazing, but it stays for the entire round, so it affects potentially several attacks. And if Ferline gets an extra dice on his inspired side, we don't really know, you could get some good mileage out of this. But with that said, I mean, crits are the king of the game, and having an extra regular success might not do very much. But it doesn't hurt. It's a relatively mediocre effect, I guess, but it's easy cast. And if you, for search or end phase purposes, needs to cast a lot of spells paired with the spell reaction, or if you're using any of the spell-focused decks, this might have its place. So that's it. Thematically amazing warbands. I think the models look really sweet, especially the very fairy tale hag-like leader and the werewolf-esque Ferline. The minions are suitably bland. Not every fighter should stand out too much, in my opinion, since that basically means that no fighter stands out. What do you think? Are you getting this one? What are your feelings on this warband? And its perceived strengths and weaknesses? Let me know in the comments below. For now, I'm out. Bye. This is Mats again, chiming in to thank you for watching the video. Please don't forget to subscribe, like and comment, and to not miss out on future content, ring the bell as well. And if you really liked this video, feel free to click the thanks button just below this video. And if you want to support me even further, you can now become a channel member and claim the title of Critical Focus fan. Until next time, take care, bye.